Before we begin, we'd like to honor the memory of Howard Hawks, co-founder and chairman emeritus of Tenaska, who passed away in December 2024. A visionary leader and philanthropist, Mr. Hawks recognized both business opportunities and community needs, helping Nebraskans thrive. His generosity and leadership shaped Omaha's growth, enriched countless lives, and left a lasting legacy. Our hearts go out to his wife, Rhonda, his children, and all who knew and were impacted by him. We dedicate this episode, focused on ethical business partnerships and community impact, to Howard Hawks and the profound influence he had on our community. Welcome to Business Ethics Walk the Talk. I am your host, Blake Peterson, and thank you so much for joining us today. We have a fantastic episode for you. We just wrapped recording, and I am jazzed up about the conversation, and the pun is certainly intended there. I'm joined by two guests today, distinguished business leaders in our community. We're going to be talking about forming ethical business partnerships and their positive impact on the community. Both of our guests have been involved with the Business Ethics Alliance as supporters and members of our trustee partnership for years. It's a real treat to welcome them today and give you guys a little insight into some of the things they're doing in the community. Our first guest, Joan Squires. She's been president of Omaha Performing Arts, or OPA for short, for 20 years since its inception. Under her leadership, OPA has become Nebraska's largest arts organization, overseeing the Orpheum Theater, Holland Performing Arts Center, Steelhouse Omaha, and the upcoming Tenaska Center for Arts Engagement, opening in early 2026. You're going to hear me call it the Tenaska Center for Performing Arts. That's not it. I messed up during the interview. It's Tenaska Center for Arts Engagement. All right, everybody? So remember that. In 2026, it'll be opening up. The organization reaches over 600,000 people per year and has $61 million in annual economic impact. That's just the Omaha Performing Arts currently, without this new center open. I want to make sure everyone understands that. She already has a tremendous non-for-profit, creating a lot of impact in the community. It's about to get even bigger. Joan is a voting member of the Tony Awards and is active with the Broadway League, where she co-chairs the Jimmy Awards Advisory Committee. She's recognized as a Midlander of the Year and has been inducted into the Omaha Business Hall of Fame. She holds a master's degree in music and business administration from the University of Michigan, so go blue. And Joan and her husband, Dan Haman, I hope I'm saying that right, Dan. They live in Omaha, Nebraska, and once again, she's been an incredible guest, full of vibrance and life. You're going to love her. We're also joined by Mr. Ron Quinn. Ron joined Tenaska in 1988 and has been a key part of its growth ever since. As executive vice president, he oversees corporate planning, investment compliance, and he serves as a corporate secretary and board member. He previously served as CFO, played a part in managing major projects, guiding strategy, and litigation. Before Tenaska, Ron held leadership roles at American Express and Internorth Incorporated. He's also deeply involved in the community, serving on several non-for-profit boards, and he's an alumni of Creighton University. And I'm going to say, Ron is, a quiet guy at first, but gosh, he's got just so much knowledge to share. And Tenaska, just under the radar. I mean, I knew they existed, but gosh, you're going to hear more about how big they are and the impact they have. It's a great private company here in Omaha that I can't wait to learn more about in the future. So together, Joan and Ron bring decades of ethical leadership and business experience to the table. They offer unique perspectives on our topic today of building ethical partnerships that create meaningful impacts in our community. And hey, I can't wait for you guys to hear it. Ron and Joan, thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate you taking time out of your schedules to be on the podcast, and I'm really excited to learn more about the new project that you guys are, embarking on here that's going to be opening up in 2026. And so I gave a little bit of a, brief synopsis in the intro, but I want to confirm some of these numbers and some of this impact with you all just off the start, just to get things rolling. So the Tenaska Center for Arts Engagement, I see is it right, $108 million development expected to go in here in Omaha?
That's correct. That's the capital cost of the project. And I'm really pleased to report that we've hit the finish line.
Wow, that's great. Congratulations. And privately funded, right? Majority privately funded.
The majority
as well, right?
is. We have a little bit of, we have some support from the state of Nebraska and the city of Omaha, but the most of the funding has been privately funding, and especially grateful to Tenaska for the leadership gift that allowed this whole project to go forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was interested in learning more about how the relationship between Tenaska and OPA got started. How did this spark kind of get ignited? I don't know if Ron, if you want to take that on, or Joan first, but
well, I'll take a start and Joan can chime in. But from a supporting standpoint, Tenaska has been in the community now 35 years, a relatively below the radar company, but a privately held energy company in Omaha. And a lot of the people that have been associated with Tenaska, it was a startup company in 1987, and over time it's grown to be a multi-billion-dollar company. Still based in Omaha today, but with offices around the country. And a lot of the growth in our company has been participated through a number of our employees who have been very active in the community over the last 20, 25 years. But we've not really done anything as a company. It's really been done through the individual owners of Tenaska, starting with Howard and Rhonda Hawks and through a whole cadre of other people that have been behind the scenes in support of making investments in the part of Omaha's activities, both and a lot of the nonprofit activities that have gone on. And Tenaska was looking for an opportunity to support the Omaha community in a visible way, and in a way that would actually have the Tenaska name involved really for the first time. And that was a step out for us, because you're making a commitment to a partner that you want to have confidence in, just as the same thing is on the other side. And the long-term history, I think, of both our company and OPA has been such that the relationship with Joan, the work that had been done by Rhonda Hawks with the OPA group in the past, and that relationship brought some strong ties that made it a fit. The other thing that made it a fit was that we were looking for something that, from an employee standpoint, would be broadly based. So it needed to find some community activity that wasn't just isolated to some part of the employee base and the community base, where this has such broad appeal and such broad focus to throughout the city, throughout the state, kids, adults, and a commitment to the arts that we think is important. So that was really the strategy behind the partnership.
Oh, that's great. Thanks for adding that. Joan, anything else on that?
Sure. As we developed Tenaska Center for Arts Engagement, and we can talk a little more about what we are going to be doing in the venue, but the fact that it's reaching a broad part of the community and really had the breadth of opportunity. And as we started to move forward in the project, we knew we needed a partner that understood what we were trying to do to change community and to really serve everybody. And we also a company that we respected, that has a long track record, as Ron mentioned, of doing wonderful philanthropic work. They've certainly supported a lot of causes, but we couldn't move forward without a leadership gift. We've had a relationship with Rhonda and other Tenaska employees. In fact, many of them, including Ron, are regular attendees at our performances. They understand what we are doing in education, in engagement, and those activities. And as we started to have that conversation, really, I think we both got excited about the possibilities of what this might bring. The location of that, and for us to have a name on the building that represented the highest level of integrity and service to community was really important to us, so that we knew it would live on. And it was it seemed like a natural fit. So it didn't just happen overnight. This was a long-term relationship, and it took time to develop. But we are really thrilled that this new addition for our community is going to represent Tenaska's name.
Yeah, I'm excited too. And Ron, something that you kind of already mentioned and maybe you covered, but since we set up this interview, I was interested in knowing a little more about the decision process on this is how we are going to deploy our philanthropic capital. And so Omaha is such a great community. There's so many great giving companies out there, and some that come to mind might be Ronco Construction or Kiewit, who they do programs in which employees pick individual charities and they may match dollars, and they probably have another fund in which they have a committee that then they will allocate. And it's quite a I mean, quite the undertaking, honestly, in order to have such a vast giving program like that. Why did Tenaska decide? You mentioned you were looking for a way to make impact in the community, something that maybe has, the Tenaska name tied to it. What were those conversations like, and what was the decision? Where you're like, this is the right thing to do, is to make one commitment to one organization that we truly believe in. How did you get to that finish line?
Well, again, much as Joan said, it was a process inside our company, and it was really a board level discussion. We do a lot of the things that you just talked about that other companies do, but on a smaller scale. And as Joan mentioned, this was a different process for us because of the leadership gift nature of this. And again, I would just emphasize that Tenaska is simply providing a leadership gift. There are dozens and dozens, hundreds of supporters of this project, and we're in part by representing them as well, with the idea that we're joining with them to make this project come to reality. You can call it impact investing, although that may be defined as something a little different than this. But it is one of these things where we wanted to have a major support effort going on in which we would align ourselves with OPA in a way that their activities would be enhanced and our commitment to the community would be visible.
Yeah, I think it's very impactful. I mean, something of this magnitude is also going to create a lot of jobs. It's going to be creating a lot more than just a center for people to go and perhaps use and see shows. And Joan, maybe touch on that. So obviously, we talked when we first started a little bit more about what you hope to do at the center and whatnot. What is going to be available for the community to go and enjoy when you finally open the doors in 2026?
Sure. I'll answer that first, put it in some context, because as Omaha Performing Arts has grown and we're now, the largest arts institution in the state, we were completing a campus, and it was a vision of our late founding chair, John Gottschalk, to make sure that we used our properties to enhance the mission to serve community. The Holland Center being the centerpiece of it, what is now the Dick and Mary Holland campus. Steelhouse is the next step in that. But what we knew we really needed to serve our mission was an education and engagement center, because we had expanded so many activities, whether they are master classes in jazz or dance or Broadway, new hip hop labs. We had young people under our stairways and in the hallways and in the lobbies, and we just were out of space. So we knew we wanted to use our remaining property to really have the right kind of facility that would expand all those opportunities going forward. Beyond the artistic, as we look at it, though, was also financial responsibility, because we believe we have a responsibility to be good fiduciaries. And so that as we approached Tenaska, we not only had a capital budget, but we also said, and this is how we will operate, this is how we will go forward with our budgets, this is what's going to happen in the building, and had really put together pretty extensive plans so that as they were considering it, they knew that we had done our own homework in looking at it. So what we're creating now, to finally answer your question, is really it's going to be a chance of all ages. This building will welcome everybody in the community, from early childhood all the way to older adults, and every type of activity through the arts, and take advantage of the artists coming through the community and local artists as well. So I'm really excited. It's a personal passion of mine.
I can tell. Yeah, I can tell. You light up when you talk about it. Now, with that, as I'm reading some information about what's going to be provided at the center, I mean, talk about, Broadway level performers being able to, teach through there. I mean, what do you, and we also talk, the opportunity for jobs. So when this is all said and done, is it going to be something where there's weekly classes people are coming in? Is there going to be certifications you're providing to people as they go through? I mean, what does it kind of look like? And I know there might be many things, but just to get more granular.
Sure, there's going to be a wide variety, and there will be camps and classes that you can sign up for that will have a cost to them. Yeah. So adults may come in and learn guitar. We may have a Broadway performer doing a master class or a workshop for young people. We will have day camps. We've already started. We had a dance intensive recently with a Broadway performer, so that they can sign up for a week-long class or maybe a summer-long class. We're working, we'll eventually have programs for vets, so veterans will be able to come in. It really is going to have the breadth of all kinds of art forms, of classes and opportunities that don't exist in our community now, and really take advantage of these amazing spaces inside the venue. Yeah,
I think that it's going to provide so many of those kids a chance to maybe pursue a dream that otherwise they just would eventually erode away because they never get exposure to this in Omaha, or they're not, or limited, right?
It is. And in fact, one of the things is hip hop. We launched a camp last year. We're getting ready to open here in a little over a year. But we wanted to start to relay the groundwork. And I heard from a young man who's a 7th grader the other day. He performed and just talked about what it meant to him and the friendships and what he learned from the great hip hop artists that we're bringing in. And just, you're impacting lives. And I think that's really what really underscores all of the great work.
Yeah, there's so much talk about team sports and what you gain from that. But this is a community you're creating, and people are growing together, and you may not have a scoreboard per se, but it still can provide a lot of those similar benefits, I think, if people view it through that lens.
Yeah, it does. We go into, right now, we do things in North Omaha, we do things in South Omaha, out in West Omaha. Those opportunities to start to connect a community, then to be welcoming for everybody to then come to the Tenaska Center. So I really think as we open the doors, it's going to be filled from the first day.
Yeah, I hope so. I think it's very exciting. And where's the exact location of the center?
It's just east of the Holland Center. So it's between Douglas and Dodge Streets, between 11th and 12th Street. So we'll have a little bit of green space outside, so we can do some things out there. And but it's a last piece of the campus that connects now the new Leahy Mall with North Omaha. And I think it's going to be a wonderful addition. So
yeah, it's great. And Ron, I want to know a little bit about the mission that Tenaska has, right? And I know, an energy company, and I was in the oil field for actually in a previous life, it feels like, but I was a part of that whole industry, and sometimes it gets a bad rap, and I'm not necessarily from me, but it certainly can from other people, when in all actuality it serves an incredibly important purpose to our economy and our world just moving along. But some people might look at it and say, wow, the Tenaska Center for Performing Arts, that doesn't have anything to do with an energy company. How do you think your mission as a company and the mission of this center actually kind of meet and come together and start to move in the same direction?
Good question. I'm going to loop around to the answer to that question, but I'm going to do so by transitioning from the question you just asked Joan, which was, and what you saw in her answer is that this is an education center. And when I remarked about all of the kind of supportive projects that Tenaska's owners and representatives have done in the past, I'd say a large focus of that has been in education in different components of the city. Schools, K through 12, pre-K, Children's Museum, all kinds of other organizations and schools, public and private. And this just is a component, and you brought up the issue of sports. Just as important to some kids as sports are the arts. Yeah. And without exposure to those arts when they're young, they're never going to get that inspiration and that training and that spark that takes them on a career path that may work for them. So again, this exposure opportunity that this center provides. So I'd say that's part of what was behind Tenaska's team and board effort to try to find a project like this to support in an impactful way, joining with other supporters of the project. And in terms of Tenaska as a company, yes, we're an energy company. We're based in the here in Omaha, but we're really a footprint across all of North America, and a little in Canada, and slightly in Mexico. And we used to do some overseas projects. We quit those in the late 1990s, but we did do a project in Bolivia and in Pakistan. Today, we are primarily a natural gas and electric company. We provide electric generating systems and electric systems marketing, and we provide a lot of natural gas, both buying and selling, not drilling. But we do market and broker natural gas and electricity throughout all 50 states. And it's important to our country. Nothing's more important to make the country run than energy, and we see it as a deep responsibility. In terms of the type of energy forms that we also are an energy generator, primarily natural gas-fired, wind, and solar. So those are our three focus of activities. We're pretty much technology neutral, but we don't have any coal. We don't have any nuclear. When you're doing wind and solar, the issue is that they only provide energy when the wind is blowing and when the sun is shining, right. And that's not 24 hours a day. So whenever the wind isn't blowing and the sun isn't shining, then you have to have some other resource with which to provide on-demand electricity for hospitals, for schools, for police departments, for all those kinds of 24-hour, 24/7 things. And that's where primarily today in this country, natural gas generating systems are by far the preferred, most environmentally friendly, and most economical resources to do that with. So that's the focus of our activity.
Yeah, I love it. I think you've probably had explained that a couple times in your tenure with Tenaska. Huh?
Yeah.
And the technology is really getting incredible in the natural gas space. And I've read a couple private companies I wish I could buy some shares of, hearing some of the things they're doing. I'm like, goodness, there's going to be some great advancements in that industry in the future. And so
we're also focused on carbon sequestration and
Yes.
and pipelines to do that, carbon capture, carbon sequestration, development of a lot of environmentally focused activities to have a positive impact on the environment.
That's great. And would you think that a part of, everybody wants to know a company's mission and values? That's certainly something that the Business Ethics Alliance talks about, very frequently. And do you think in a way, because you said this is obviously a partner gift and the board of Tenaska came together to decide to make this gift. Do you see it as almost a company has like a mission statement for maybe what you're doing to provide profit and make the company grow, but also almost a separate mission that is your philanthropic goals? Do you see those as two separate things, and is that how you all are talking about it?
I don't see them as separate things. I see them as a single focus of being we want to be a good corporate citizen in all the locations in which we do business, which is over half our employees are not in Omaha. So, I mean, again, we have a large footprint in the Dallas area and in a number of plants around the country where we generate electricity and where we handle natural gas and electricity. But all of that is focused on a commitment to three things: primarily the customer, then the community in which we're at, delivering fair value for fair price, and having to stay in business. And we're trying to do it in a way that is, trying to minimize risk to the extent possible. Recognize that in all businesses there are risks, just as there are in all arts projects. Mm-hmm. So from that standpoint, a commitment to the community is part of being that good corporate citizen. And that's been a heart of our company since the get-go. You talked about the Business Ethics Alliance. And ethical focus of business to me is a component of long-term success. Mm. If you don't make a commitment to customers and to employees and to the communities in which you reside, you're probably not going to stay in business long-term. Yeah. Short-term gains may be realized, but long-term success will not.
Gosh, that's great. I've heard it many times in some conversations recently, so I love hearing you say that statement. I think it's very important. And Joan, I think, Ron just touched on something as the leader of a non-for-profit, which, by the way, a non-for-profit, but you're certainly dealing, even before this project, I mean, you are making an incredible impact, and there is quite a bit of money that is flowing through your fund, right, into the community. I think that, or your non-for-profit, excuse me. And so if I read correctly about, you affect about 600,000 people a year currently, and then almost $60 million is kind of what it takes to run and operate your programs on an annual basis. Is that correct?
Yeah, it fluctuates depending on our Broadway season at the Orpheum and others, but that's close to that. But our economic impact annually is over $61 million, and then all the jobs associated with it. So we are still a business, and I think sometimes people use nonprofit as, oh, you're not really a business, and they look at us differently. It's a tax qualification, right. But we still have a responsibility to maintain the integrity of our work, to meet our budget every year so that we're good fiduciaries for those who are contributing or buying tickets from us, and to serve the community. Now we have a mission with that, taking care of our now soon to be 4 wonderful venues, bringing arts and entertainment to the community, and then for me, most importantly, the education and engagement activities. And in doing so, we still have to run as a business. So we have annual budgets, we have an endowment, and we have to fundraise. And good corporate citizens like Tenaska and others have been incredibly generous. I do look at Omaha, and we are in a special place here because I have a lot of conferences I go to nationally, and my colleagues just can't believe what does happen here. And Tenaska has been one of the leaders. I mean, they're a company that really does give back. They certainly are committed to what their focus is, but they believe in making sure the quality of life where their employees are is better. And so they contribute to organizations like ours and in a very generous way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you said it. I know every board that I'm on, I get the finance committee because of my role, right? That's what I go to. And I have to tell a lot of, smaller non-for-profits, I'm like, yeah, maybe it's not profit, but no revenue means no programs. Right. And that's what happens if you don't keep a balanced budget and keep things flowing in. So it is very much a business, and the responsibility and the risk is very similar. Right. And so when you are going out and doing these fundraising, especially maybe earlier on, or when you're trying to grow and find a partner for this new center you're trying to make, I'm sure there's, some kind of temptation and incentive to, say yes to whoever might come forward, because it's like, gosh, we need to raise this money in order to achieve these goals and keep on advancing our mission. But maybe that's not always the right choice for the company, your employees long term, or your non-for-profit long term. So can you maybe touch on what's your process like when you decide to take on, any kind of a corporate donor relationship like this, in which you're going to put a company's name on the side? You talked about their commitment and what they've done over the years, but you've been doing this for a long time, and I'm sure you've had a lot of opportunities that have walked through the door. Maybe you've had to say no to some of those, and I'd be interested as to maybe your thought process and decision making and qualification for those instances.
Well, I think the most donors, and particularly here in Omaha and Tenaska included, look at philanthropic support to serve the mission of the organization they're supporting. Mm-hmm. Once in a while, we will have someone come forward that wants to fund their pet project, and you have to determine, is that really part of what you are, and not just go chase the dollars. Right. So I've seen nonprofits get off track where they're literally chasing any project that comes along, and their mission gets spread, or it may not even be core to who they are. So I think sometimes you have to be careful in those decisions. It doesn't happen very often, but you do see that on occasion, and then you have to make judgment calls. Is this mission driven? Is this core to who we are? And sometimes either it's not the right fit or not right now. But for the most part, we don't run in that very often here.
Yeah, that's great. Omaha is a little bubble in a way. I've noticed it's a beautiful community to be a part of for that reason, and it's so generous in so many ways. But non-for-profits, that's the lifeblood, is people's generosity, and hopefully the impact you make is can ripple through time. And I want to talk about impact, and so we threw out some numbers as far as the number of people you help a year and how much money you bring through the community. But if we're going to measure impact, I mean, I think that, and Ron, I'm definitely going to want to hear some of your opinion on this as well afterward. But when you are let's say a for-profit and publicly traded company, I think it is very clear how you're going to be measuring your success and your impact, and it is actually reflecting in your stock price on a daily basis on the S&P 500 perhaps, or what people think is going to happen. But for you, what is important to you in measuring your impact and making sure, because I'm sure when you founded this non-for-profit, there was a goal you wanted to set out and achieve, and then as you bring more people on board, that goal has to grow and change and adapt. And so how do you measure that, and do you think, have you done it so far? You know what I mean? Maybe that'd be a good question.
Are we there yet?
Yeah, are we there yet? How much further?
We always keep moving the goalposts, so
Yeah,
I don't think we're ever there,
Yeah.
Which has been part of the fun, because as we continue to evolve and serve a community. There's a couple of ways. Firstly, yes, we also have financial measurements, so we want to make sure we've made the budget every year since inception. The first couple of years of startup, we had deficit budgets, but we made the deficit budget we said we were going to. Mm-hmm. And then we're able to continue to put the financial structures in place. So certainly we have a responsibility. But I think beyond that and you can look at number of students we might reach, or the number of schools. We have a high school theater program that's now in all 93 counties across the whole state, and a little bit of South Dakota and Iowa now.
Wow.
So you start to look at the breadth of programs, the number of students. But some of our measurements are not quantifiable. It's qualitative. And we get feedback on social media. We do surveys. We see what the responses are. We literally the other day we gave away tickets through VetTix for the veterans came to some of our shows. And we saw on social the postings of what it meant to them and their families that wouldn't have been able to otherwise come to a show, or students that get back to us on their career paths, or just how it makes families come together to experience that. We get people off their devices. We give them something they don't get anywhere else. It's the human connection. And frankly, today, I think we need it more than ever. So our mission is really important, I think, for the greater good of the community.
Yeah. Just think about the fact that before every performance, it's put your cell phones away.
Yeah.
Nobody does that much anymore.
Except, I'll tell you what the exception is right now, though, is we have closed captioning now on phones. So people occasionally are following on the words. So we let them do that. But you're exactly right, Ron. You have to put your cell phones away.
Yeah.
You have to be with the people around you and then connect to live performances. It's not digital. It's not on a screen. It allows people to express what they are, as humans, which can sound a little hokey at times, but it really is important. I think the arts bring creativity, bring people together, and I like nothing better than standing on the back of a packed concert hall or theater and watching the reaction of the audience and the artists on stage is just nothing better.
What's really important is to recognize the fact that only in the last 100 years could you ever have music without somebody performing it?
Right.
Could you ever have theater without somebody performing it? Now there's so much music on demand, performance on demand, whatever, that people are used to it. But keeping live performances, live music is just really an important component, or there won't be anybody to make any future recordings. We'll be living off of whatever's been in the can today, so to speak.
Right.
Yeah, and especially with the kinds of things we do for young people. In fact, this morning, one of my staff members came in. He had taken his 6-year-old son to Peter Pan for the first time. It's the first Broadway show his son had seen. And he said, his son's like, could I do that? Those are young people on stage. He had so many questions about the show. Thrilled. He said he was complaining having to sit in the theater before the show started, and then he said he couldn't take his eyes off the stage, and he hasn't stopped talking about it. And you start to open up these worlds for young people, and it's just wonderful.
Yeah, and it's Ron, you brought up a great point on, there needs to be people around to make the next generation of great artists, and I think it's scary. There's an imposter syndrome aspect where all you have, I was a guitarist, I played in bands and I played in bars, never anything that crazy, right? But it was a fun time, and I always was very bold, and so I liked that risk. I liked the rush of being up there. But if you're comparing yourself to Jimi Hendrix, you might be like, oh, I can't do that. But at one point in time, you didn't have the on-demand ability to look at the best of the best all the time and then say, well, I'm not that good, so I shouldn't do it.
And that's the important part of this. That is really lost. It's the same thing. You have all those things are edited to perfection. And so anybody who's trying to do it for the first time or even the 10th time says, I can't do it as well as what I saw or what that was. And that's a real sad event, because we now have this school teachers will tell you the same thing. It's very hard to inspire students when they're used to everything being perfect. And yet this is the chance to say, okay, we can do it wrong. And sports provides the same thing. There's a lot of parallels here, and there's a lot of different paths for what kids' skills and expertise are. And there's this heavy emphasis on sports, and this is a heavy emphasis on other dimensions.
Yeah, which I love. And you talked about the little boy and his experience seeing a show. And I've seen some shows, but I remember going to Wicked when I was probably 23 years old, and that was my first Broadway performance. And it was great. I'm enjoying it, but the final act before the whatever the middle, I'm sorry, I should know the word. Before intermission, in which there's the big scene in which the Green Witch is doing her, that's to me was so, I was crying. I could not believe how beautiful it was happening in front of me, and a person was expelling this sound from their body. It resonates with you so much differently. And now you're there's a movie. I'm sure the movie's great. I don't know. I'm sure it's fantastic. I have no idea.
Great.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. But it's nothing could beat. And what the best part was, as soon as it was done to intermission, I turned to my friend and said, oh my gosh, that was the greatest thing I've ever seen. And we're all, so fired up on it. I don't know if you're going to get that same feeling, behind the screen. And so do you partner with schools? Like, I'm thinking, like, as we talk about the new generation and all this, cell phones and the digital age, how do you reach out and make sure you're getting those people to these classes? And what do you kind of do to help pry them away from the screens, and maybe the parents who are very busy and don't have the time to always sign them up or do these extracurriculars? How do you make it easy for them, and how do you make it available so you hopefully get those kids away from the screens and doing something with you?
Sure, we do it a number of ways. We certainly work closely with the schools and the teachers.
Yeah.
So the administrators of the schools are really important. We have student matinees where you see the buses lined up around our buildings. We bring young people into it, and also make sure that we offer the classes. And then a lot of it's online. So as much as we can get everybody's attention more and more on social media to let people know the classes are available, working a lot of grassroots right now to advertise and market these classes. And you will see more and more about it, so that people might say, well, that's not for me, but that might be, or to try it out, because we have so many opportunities of whether you like jazz or dance or Broadway or hip hop, or all these art forms may speak to somebody in a way that maybe I could try that. And we're also, it is similar to sports. A lot of these classes, I just saw a master class with the cast member from Peter Pan the other night, and it was 70 students from across the state. They're not all going to be Broadway people, but they're all in there trying. They get to work together on that experience, and they take something away from it about discipline, cooperation, and just the camaraderie of learning something new. So the arts give back in the same way I think many sports teams do. Not everybody's going to be an NFL football player or be in the NBA, but it's that experience together.
Yeah, and the great lessons to teach your kids and stories to tell them later on. And I got to learn from a Broadway performer at one point. That's so neat. And I'm thinking about this amazing center, which I'm impressed by, not only the programming but the incredible commitment from the community. I mean, there's a lot of big things in Omaha, but there's not a lot of projects of this scope and size any given year. This is something special. I think that would be clear from the articles that I've read. And so, when I'm doing my goal setting, what do I want 1 year out, 5 years, 10 years? And I think about that, and what would be at the end of that time frame, how do I qualify it as being successful or not? Because your goals change, the world changes around you. So as we're starting off and embarking on this project at the Tenaska Center for Performing Arts, what would be the definition of success on some of these milestones, and how are you quantifying it? And Ron, you've been a little quiet as of late. I've been picking on Joan a lot, so maybe you could start from your perspective.
Well, it's really a Joan question to kind of measure that success. I think we will deem it a success to the extent the project gets done on time and on budget.
Yeah.
Which you will.
But I think from our standpoint, in aligning ourselves together with OPA on this project, we wouldn't have done it if we didn't have confidence in the leadership and the board and the track record that they had established. And I assume that's probably true on the reverse side of that, is they wouldn't have wanted our name on the building if they didn't feel that we would have that commitment into the future as well. So when you provide a leadership gift on behalf of all of the supporters of this project, we're all looking for the same thing, but it does depend on an ongoing leadership and strong board support. It's just the same as strong management. And then we get back to the Ethics Alliance, which is that commitment to ethical values, to doing what you say you're going to do, to delivering value for the customer. And we talked earlier about the fact that, it really is a business. One business makes profits, returns it to owners who either use it to buy goods and services or to make philanthropic support for other activities. If they can't provide a service in which they get enough revenue to cover their costs, then they're not going to be in business. And if they do, then those excess revenues get redeployed back to grow. And if they hadn't been successful, they wouldn't have been able to grow the way they have. Yeah. But there's very little difference in the way these two businesses are operating, quite frankly, and in the way any successful nonprofit operates.
Yeah, absolutely. Great answer. Joan, what about you?
Well, I want to see every room, because it's Tenaska and all the donors that have come together. We've had quite a few folks be very generous to this venue. But to see the rooms filled, the classrooms filled, the rehearsal halls active all the time. I mean, the need is there right now, And I do believe the opportunity is there to really increase the opportunities for the community and to serve all parts of the community. We are here for everybody, and we've had a lot of programs that are focused on making sure everybody feels welcome with it. So I want to see that we do operate as a business. We have our core values. We haven't talked about those, but team, inclusion, trust, and integrity, and our culture to support all of that. And that's why I think the partnership with Tenaska has been wonderful, because we share so many of the same values. We want to see the same thing for the community, and you want to leave something here in the community that just continues to improve it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that I'm sure everybody at Tenaska sees the incredible vigor in you and your energy. And to your point, Ron, you've built a successful non-for-profit business structure that has grown incrementally over time and has proven success. And if before you make any type of investment, the best advice I've gotten, and before buy a company that makes money, is usually the best one you can go with. And you found somebody who can consistently do that. And I hope and I wish nothing but success to the both of you, because if it weren't for great private companies and wonderful non-for-profits, I think there would be so much less in this world for us regular people to go and enjoy. You go to the zoo, the only thing, the more of in the zoo than animals are names, on the walls, I always say, because of great people who've donated their money to make this incredible place for me to take my kids and make memories with them. And so I wanted to save these last couple minutes just for anything else that you wanted to add, whether it's about I know you said that we didn't talk much about the values. If there's anything that you really want to make sure people understand about OPA before we wrap up, or about the Tenaska Center that you want to make sure the community knows, I just want to give you the opportunity to do that. I know we've covered a lot, and thank you so much for being so generous with your answers. I really appreciate it. But Joan, how about you? What do you say? I'm going to point it at you first.
You're going to point it at me first. No, I do hope people will take advantage of it. I think this is when we look at attracting and retaining a workforce, people, the first thing they ask is, what is there to do? And to take advantage of these buildings. I think Omaha has a really special opportunity for the citizens here to not just everything at Omaha Performing Arts. We have 4 amazing venues, and now with the Tenaska Center, they should take advantage of it. It's not just, hey, they're here, but try it out. I do hope that folks will come down to either attend a show, send their children or grandchildren or somebody to a class, or help us support those classes that will change lives. It can sound sort of trite, but I do think the arts have the power to do that. And so I hope they will take advantage. The building is spectacular. Is going to be spectacular, and it will be on time, on budget. Yeah. I've been guaranteed that by all the construction folks right now, and I was just through yesterday. But I want people to understand what we have here, because many communities don't have the quality of the venues, the opportunity to have those experiences, and we're not so big that not everybody can't get there. Some cities are so large, sometimes I think it's more of a challenge. And here we have the greatest venues you could find anywhere in a city that it's still very accessible.
Right. Absolutely.
And we want to make sure, by the way, that cost is not a barrier. So there's opportunities too. So whether some of our ticket programs or scholarships and things, we will make sure that if someone wants to come in, we don't want to have any barriers to be able to do that.
And where should we go if we want to find out about those programs?
All of it is on o-pa.org. So people can check out our website. There's already some information on the Tenaska Center there. Tickets are through ticketomaha.com for all of our venues. But we'll continue to post it, and they'll continue to see. I appreciate the opportunity to talk today about it, and to get a chance to share it with Ron. It's
fun, and make sure we're going to have those links posted in the episode notes, everybody. So if you want to go and check it, and follow us on social media. That's where everything's happening. So that's where most of it is. Absolutely. And the Business Ethics Alliance. I always forget to say that too. So there we go. And Ron, and then in the very beginning, you started off by saying, Tenaska is kind of this multi-billion-dollar company that's almost under the radar, right? But it was built here, grown here, obviously has incredible impact. And so I guess I just want to give the floor to you with kind of that same wrap-up question on how is, for people that want to, maybe understand more about the company, or if you want to give them any other little nuggets of the impact that Tenaska makes. Well,
I would say that we're a private company. We're the largest small company I know, because our culture still remains a small company culture, but it's a large organization. And we can only do that because we are a private company.
Yeah.
And you mentioned earlier the fact, if we weren't a private company, we couldn't have made a commitment like this, because that would have been a shareholder decision.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, our shareholders are us and our employees and our board, and so therefore we could make this kind of a decision. And so there's a lot of advantages to not being a public company. As Howard Hawks, our chairman, says, we'll never be a public company. They do dumb things on purpose. We do dumb things, but we don't do them on purpose. Right. But I guess the other thing I would say is that in the history of Tenaska and our organization, through things that we've done in the community, there's been a large focus not only on education and sports, but on mental health. And again, I tie that back to the idea that kids are getting so stressed by social media, by what's taking up their time, by these comparisons to the perfect, that we have to have these types of opportunities for kids to get engaged with other kids doing things, making mistakes, finding out it's okay to not be perfect. And that I think we can, this in part is going to help on some of those issues if it's done right and if we get kids engaged, because we've got to get them away from their devices.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think your story, just from your bio and everything I read earlier, speaks to that. It takes time. I mean, you had many other, multiple positions at other companies that maybe people would have never walked away from. I'm sure you took some level of risk to decide to come over and be a part of Tenaska. And now, from 1988 till now, I mean, it wasn't always Tenaska being in a position to do these things. And I'm sure there was a couple years that we weren't sure if you're going to make it to this point with Tenaska, and yet here you are. And so it is a slow process. And
it's a long-term commitment to values. There's actually been times when we just said, we're not going to do that. Whatever happens, happens.
Yeah.
And that's when the tough gets going, so to speak. And that's when you know whether your values are real or not. They have to be tested. And if you're going to, you asked the question earlier to Joan about, have you ever had to have a donor comes to you and says, I'll donate? But if you have, in her case, if someone comes to you and it's kind of strings attached and it's, I want you to do this, I'll give you the money with which to do it, then you have to figure out, does it fit your core mission? And the same thing on our side. If we have a customer and says, well, I'll do this or that, but then you have to evaluate. No, we're going to follow laws, regulations. We have a plethora of laws in the energy industry. Our commitments to compliance and environmental activities is just paramount, and we spend a lot of time doing it. And we have an incredible safety record. We have a plant that's gone 1.5 million man-hours without a lost time accident.
Wow!
In a power plant.
That's incredible. Yeah, that's incredible. That's a feat, and that speaks to culture, right? And it also speaks to having a great understanding all the way from the C-suite level down to those employees, where they must believe that you believe.
As the Ethics Alliance will tell you, it's the tone at the top.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to take that little nugget on, your values have to be tested. I mean, wow, how great is that? And it's true. You don't think about it, but you could say values all day, but at some point they're going to be tested, and they're not really, you don't know if they're real or not until you have to go through that moment, right? So that's great. Well, thank you both so much for your time. I look forward to being a guest at the Tenaska Center for Performing Arts at some point in the future, and I'm definitely going to try to make it to more of the events. I mean, I feel terrible I haven't been to the Steel House yet. I used to live like 3 blocks away from it, but now it's like I'm going to get back there.
We can help you.
I know. I hear. Well, I'm going to be going on and checking it out. But thank you both so much for your time, and I can't wait to see this thing break ground and be open. It'll be awesome.
Thank you, Blake.
Thank you so much, Blake.